Hi, it's Everett, Everett's Watercolors. Welcome to my studio. Today I'm going to do another watercolor demonstration. Today, as every week, this is my weekly schedule on Thursday. So I'm going to do another watercolor demonstration with what I think is a very interesting subject. I'm going to paint rocks. Okay, and I've got a nice little picture to start with, and it's called a rocky coast with water and so forth and some sky. So let's go to my painting table and let me get started. There's my reference photograph. You can see here, you see the rocky shore here, big rocks over here, these big rocks up here, then the rocks here in the water. So a lot of rocks to paint today, and interesting looking sky and the water. So that's going to be my reference photograph, and that's where I'll get started from. Probably won't be exactly look the same, but at least it'll get me started. Okay, now we're going ahead and I've did my design work, which I always do. I always take a photograph or a picture, whatever I have, and I design what I call my design drawing. And this is my design drawing. Here's those basic rocks I have here. And there was a shape here that I didn't like, so I'm going to go ahead and just make them all rocks. So it was a shape over here in a photograph I didn't like. And I changed some of the foreground a little bit, make them different shapes of rocks. And I added some different shapes in the sky. So, there's my interpretation of the photograph, and that's how I'm going to paint this here. So that's my design sketch for today's painting. So what I'm going to do now is go ahead and get started. I transferred that sketch into my watercolor paper. This is a quarter sheet of Gemini watercolor paper. It measures 15 by 11 inches wide and 15 inches long. 11 by 15. Okay, and over here I've got, I'm going to get my Hake brush to wet up the sky. My Hake, this is a middle-sized Hake. And I have my Holbein brush set here. I got the 3/4 inch flat, a full 1 inch flat, half inch flat, and a number 8 round. Okay, those are my brushes I'll be using today in the painting. The Holbein, I'll use my regular palette today with the standard colors. There's probably a little bit of blue, ultramarine blue, and there's my dot spray bottle. This is a pound and bottle dot sprayer. It's just got water in it today. I'm just going to use that to wet my paints up. I'll use a little bit of blue, maybe a little bit of that, a little Payne's gray. Come down here to get some yellow ochre and a little bit of burnt sienna. That'll be about all I need. I don't need too many other colors. And for the sky, I might use a little bit of cerulean blue or cobalt blue over here for the sky. Okay, so that's very simple palette today. And so I'm going to get started. I'm going to go ahead and I'll prop my paper up. I'm going to put this on take a 2x4 and I'm going to prop my paper so I get a little gravity flow here for the water. So, first of all, I'm going to wet the sky. Use a large Hake brush. Get the paper nice and wet. This helps with the paint flow. Come down here, all the way down to the basically horizon line. Go right over top of those rocks, it won't make any difference. Right down to the horizon. Okay, now I got the paper, a little more water up there. Make sure the paper is wet all the way down. A little wet on wet for the sky. Okay, you can see that's wet. You can see the wet paper. You see the sheen on the paper. I mean, it's wet. Okay, that shows that it's wet. All right, so get started with wet paper. I'm going to take my large 1 inch Holbein brush, and I'm going to take a little bit of blue, a little bit of ultramarine blue up here for the sky, and I'll have about a middle value, not too light, not too dark, just to get started. So I'm going to come across the top here with a little bit of that blue, get that blue sky up here. A little darker at the top. And now I'm going to go ahead and pick up a little bit of cerulean. Just a touch of cerulean blue. I'll bring that down here at the bottom. A little lighter blue touch at the bottom. Down here by the rocks. This will dry much lighter when it dries, so get it down, cover up the paper. Okay, I think what I'll do now is get a little more of that, ultramarine blue. And get that sky a little bit darker up here in the top. Sky is always a little bit darker blue at the top of the sky, and it comes down to the horizon, it's a little bit lighter. And we'll do that. That's good. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my piece of tissue, and I'm going to make some tissue clouds. So it's wet now, so I'm going to go ahead and roll up the tissue a little bit, get a nice shape of a cloud. I'm going to press that right into the paper. Come down to the horizon a little bit more, get a little smaller cloud at the bottom. And I'll put another cloud, roll with the paper, make sure I get a clean section. Put another cloud over here. So that's my cloudy sky, okay? Now while I'm here, while I got the brush and so forth, I'm going to go ahead and also going to put some color in the water. The horizon's here, down here is the water. So I'm going to mix up a little more of that ultramarine blue. Blow out the brush. And now this is dry. I'll let this dry down here. So this is going to be wet on dry at this point. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to go ahead and put in a little bit of blue in the water. And I'm going to leave some white paper showing. There's little waves, the white waves out there in the water. And I'm going to leave the white paper showing. To give me the shape of the waves and so forth, the flow. Okay, so I went ahead and put the water in, left the white paper showing for the, simulate the water moving with a little bit of waves on that, okay? Now we're going to dry this. Use my Ranger craft tool. So what I've done is mixed up a little bit of ultramarine blue and some cerulean blue, painted the sky, and got it a little bit darker at the top, lighter at the bottom. And then I made some clouds there using a little tissue. I made little tissue clouds up in the sky, just to have a shape up there in the sky. Then down the water, I added a little bit of ultramarine blue and put in the water color. And left some white paper showing the movement of waves, some white water showing through the waves. Okay, now the paper, when you wet it, it's going to stretch a little bit, so I'll move the clips here a little bit to stretch the paper. Over here, straighten this one out. Okay, Okay, and I'll continue to dry. Make sure this is nice and dry, especially along the bottom here, next to the rocks. Okay, all right. So my the next phase now is to paint the rocks. I've got the sky and the water started, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take the next 3/4 inch brush, and what I'm going to do here now, I'm going to mix up a little bit of. Now I'm going to start in the rocks, the furthest ones away, back down here, and then I come forward. These are going to be a little bit cooler, so I'm going to use a little bit more ultramarine there. It's going to be an ultramarine mixed in with a little bit of burnt sienna. It'll be a bluish gray, and that's going to be that first couple rocks there, and then we'll modify from that. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put in the, now what I'll do now, I'm going to go put a little bit of water, start out with. I'm going to wet that rock area, just put a little bit of water in there. And I'm going to take my mixture of light gray and it's going to put that on the rock surface. Okay, so that's the first rock. It'll be a light, it's like a bluish gray. So that's going to be, and it's cooler back there. Now, as I come forward now, I'm going to add a little more warmth to it, a little more. Now the next rock, I'm going to make it basically the same color, but just a tad more warmth, and I'm going to add a little more of that burnt sienna to that mix. So it'll be a gray, but it'll be a warmer gray. And so I'm going to wet this one also. Just take a little bit of water and wet that rock area just a little bit. And I'm going to go in with that warmer gray now and do this rock. Using a big 3/4 inch, using the corner of the brush, the side of the brush. Use this corner to get the shape. I'm going to leave a little bit of paper there. This will be a smaller rock there next to that. And also what I'm going to do while I'm here, while this is still damp, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that darker mix of blue, ultramarine blue and burnt sienna, and I'm going to put a little bit of texture in there, just to have a little bit of shadowing on here on this particular one. Just a little bit of color, a little bit of at the base. I'm going to have the light coming from this direction, so that this top of the rock will be a little bit lighter, and down here toward the base it'll be more in shadow. So we'll put while it's still wet, I'm putting wet on wet now, letting that just let it run together. Okay. Now the next one. This next one I'm going to make a little bit more. A little bit darker on this one, I think. So I'm going to make this one I'm going to add a little more blue and make this one a little bit darker. This next rock. So I'm going to change the menu here to add a little more burnt sienna, maybe a touch of Payne's gray. But I'll keep that warmth in there. I'm going to make it a warmer brown, but I want it to be a darker a darker color, so add a little more paint. A little bit of Payne's gray into that mix, along with that burnt sienna. So it's going to be a darker value. Now I'm going to go ahead and wet this one again. Wet the area just a little bit. Just put a little bit of water in there. Just dampen it. And now I'm going to put this. Now I'm going to put this one. As you can see, I made this a little bit darker. It's closer to the foreground. It's coming forward, so I made this a little bit darker. And I'm changing the color, making it a darker color, but also add a little bit of burnt sienna. It's still got a warm tint to it. It's coming forward. Now that's still wet. I don't want to touch that yet on that side. So I'm going to leave that little gap in there right now until that dries. And I'll bring this right on down to the beach area. There's a small beach here along these rocks. Put that along in there. Okay. All right. So that's my third rock, I guess. Now leave that one kind of dry by itself. I will put a little more color now. Let me dry this down just a little bit right here. Okay, you can see there as the paint dries, it gets a little bit lighter. Those are further away, they're a little bit fainter, and get a little bit darker as they come forward. All right, now this rock here is more interesting. I'm going to make this one a little more burnt sienna in here, and maybe a little bit of ultramarine blue. I mean, a little bit of yellow ochre. So now we're getting a little bit warmer now. As we come forward, the rocks are getting a little closer, and we're going to make them a little bit warmer. Still going to put just a little touch of that ultramarine blue in there, but it's going to be a much warmer mix now. These will be a little warmer in color. They're closer. We'll leave a little gap here also, just a little bit between these two, just for right now. They're still a little bit damp, so I don't want those to run together yet. And I'll take that small brush now and go down here and fill in this little section here at the bottom. Pick up a little darker mix here for the back and shadow area. Also at the base, bring it down. Okay. All right. So that's my fourth rock. Now this big one over here now is going to have a combination. I'm going to make that a gray rock area. So I'm actually a little more blue in this. More blue, make it a gray. Mixing blue in there with that brown makes it a nice gray. So I'm going to put this one up here. And give a little rocky edge, a nice rocky edge. And we'll come on down here with this darker gray. Leave a little gap there between the two until they dry. And then back in here, we'll add a little darker mix, even darker. So put a darker section right in here, more in shadow. So just add a little more add a little bit of Payne's Glade to the mix, make it really a dark value. And down in here, I'm going to add that dark mix down here in the shadow area. Now I'll take a smaller brush and close up those gaps a little bit. Okay, so that's like my rocky coast now is coming along here. I got the formation pretty well. I'm going to go ahead and dry this up a little bit. And while this is still wet, I'm going to put a little dark up in here in sections, get some creases and so forth. I'm going to break this up just a little bit and break up the shape a little bit with some value change. Okay. And while it's just still wet, I've got some table salt here, just regular old table salt. And what I'm going to do, I don't do this very often. This is just another technique I want to try. This little table salt, and I'm going to sprinkle just while it's still damp right here. I'm going to sprinkle just a little bit of salt here to give me a little texture in those rock formation. So I'm just leave that in there and let it kind of dry. Okay. So I added a little bit of salt to the mix. So I added a little bit of salt in this thing. It has to dry a little bit. So we'll go ahead and dry off some of this other. Okay. All right. Now we can start working a little bit on these forward. This is dry in here, so I'm going to go ahead and put the beach in here. And what I'm going to use here with the beach, I'm going to use a little bit of yellow ochre and a touch of burnt sienna. Give me a nice sandy color. And I'm using a 1/2 inch flat now from Holbein. And I'm going to put that sandy beach in here. Right on the base of these little hills or little small mountains. I'm going to call these mountains here, but they're rocks, rocky mountains, right on the edge of the coast. Okay, so that's a beach. That's the beach, sand beach here on the. And these forward areas, these are all going to be rocks down here. So I got a little bit of beach and the rocks. I'm going to add a little bit of foreground rocks here. So what I'm going to need, now these are going to be much lighter. So what I think I'll do, I'm going to use this same mix here with yellow ochre and a little bit of burnt sienna. I'm going to make this a light rock here and here, in front of this dark one. It'll show it off a little bit. A little bit of contrast there between those two rocks. And also I'm going to take my little brush and I'm going to put a little bit of dark shadow here at the bottom. Okay. All right, let that go. Now what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this 3/4 inch brush here, and I'm going to mix up. What I'm going to do with these rocks in here in the foreground is I'm going to have them all lighter, much lighter, and they're warmer too. So they're going to be basically not going to be sand color, but they're going to be a little burnt sienna, a bit of yellow ochre, so that's going to be the rock color here in the foreground. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, I'm going to go ahead and paint these all in, and I'm going to use it wet on dry, with dry paper. So I'm going to go ahead and just go ahead and put that color in. And I'm going to use pretty what I call just rock formation type brush strokes. Vary the brush, turn the brush around, get angles, give me some straight lines, vertical lines, changing the angle of the brush. I'm going to leave a little bit of white paper showing for little highlights here on some of the rocks. Now pick up a little bit of that, little dark mix of a little bit of ultramarine blue. Put a little bit of dark color in there, a little bit around the rock areas. But primarily, it's going to be a lighter, a warmer color here in the foreground. These rocks here have got more of a lighter color in the foreground. Using the crisscross brush strokes, give me a rough, textured look of rocks. Leaving some whites. You see a little bit of white paper showing for a little bit of highlights. And pick up a little bit of dark mix. Give it some texture. Okay. And I'm also going to put a little bit of salt down here also. I got this salt mixture. Put it on scatter. And while it's still wet, I'm going to put a little bit of salt on top of these rocks here. Give them a little bit of texture. And you'll see that it begins to absorb the salt, that it breaks it up a little bit. Okay. That's enough of that, just to give you an idea. We want to see how that works. I'll bring it up close to see if you can see. You might be able to see some of the rocks formations there. You can see some of the salt, scattered salt down in here to give a little bit of texture on the rock. And you can see some of it drying up here on this rock up here. Okay, so that'll be an interesting little thing to check. Now also back here behind. This is still some sand over here, so I'm going to use that sand color I had before up here behind. This is sand behind these rocks. And we'll go ahead and put that in. Put that sand color. Okay. All right. So sand there, sand there, sand there. Okay. Oh, okay. And I have this rock down here. I'm going to use a smaller brush for that. I'm going to make this a light rock also down here. A light colored rock at this point. Okay. All right. So I pretty well got the rocks laid in. And also I'm going to, while I'm here, I'm also going to put some rocks in the water. I've got a rock down here I want to put in. I'm going to put in a rock down. I'm going to use this light yellow mix first. It's a yellow ochre and a little bit of burnt sienna, just to get a nice light color, a rock color, brown rock out here in the water, because these are wet, and I'm going to put a little bit of dark on them when I get this on, because they'll be wet from the surf hitting them. And I got another rock over here. We got rocks along in the water, along the edge, and I got another little rock over here. Just a touch of a rock over here. Okay. All right. Okay, now I'm going to dry. All right, so basically got everything blocked in. I got the rocks blocked in, and now I'm going to do now dry this real good, and then I'll put some finishing touches. Okay, I really enjoy. I love to paint rocks along with the skies and water. So this is just an opportunity to have a lot of fun. Let's see, check my paper. Yeah, it feels good. Make sure that salt's nice and dry. I think it is. Okay, paper's pretty dry. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the paper and I'm going to shake off. Now what do you do? I'm just going to shake off that salt here off the paper. Okay? I'm going to shake it off. Okay. And I can take a tissue here and just gently rub the paper a little bit. Just trying to move all that salt. Most of it went into my trash bag. Okay, so now you can see a little bit of the texture on those rocks with that salt. Okay, I think that was very effective. I like that. Okay, now what I'm going to do now is going to go ahead and make a little definition here now. So now the next stage is to put a little more detail in some of these areas. Down here at the foreground, or middle ground next to the water. We'll start with that. I'm going to put a dark rock out here, and a foreground. Okay, kind of gives me a little place to go. I'll draw your eyes there a little bit, and we'll have a reason for that in a minute. Now what I'm going to do now is at the base of these rocks or mountains. These are really small hills, a rocky coast. These will be large hills, large rocks on the edge of the ocean here, on the edge of the shore. Okay, so I'll put a little shadow here at the bottom, the edge or the beach area, and that shadow is going to get a little bit darker as I come forward. You know, atmospheric perspective, things will look a lot lighter when they're further away, and they get darker as you come forward, more defined. So I'm trying to use a little bit of aerial perspective here for these rocks to show that the ones further away are a little bit lighter. They've also got a bluer tint to them. As I come here, there's this little gap here I want to fill in now. This little gap between the two rocks here. Then some more value change on that. Okay, and this darker brown one here, burnt sienna, a little bit of that ultramarine mix. make it a nice dark brown, which is what I had, and go in and fill in this gap here. So I'm cleaning up the edges now, the little gaps I left here between while the paint was drying. Okay, and this was another dark one here. This is a dark gap, and we'll add a little more texture there, a little more value change there, a little more depth. A little brush stroke here to break up that edge a little bit, just to give it a little bit of rough look. Okay, now come down to these rocks in the foreground. I'm going to go ahead and, there's a gap here I want to fill in. I'll just use some of that brown mix, yellow brown mix. Fill in these white edges. Okay. And over here there'll be a little rough edge along the side here, shadows and so forth showing down. Okay. And okay, that's looking pretty good. Now, the other thing I want to do here now is kind of break these rocks, break up these rocks formations a little bit. So I'm going to take a little bit of this mix of burnt sienna, a little bit of ultramarine blue. I'm going to come in here now and I'm going to put in a little darkness here, a little shadow, separate these rock structures just a little bit. Make this one a little bit darker behind. And one more. This rock formation here. Just to separate, I'm separating these little, these areas of rocks, layers of rocks, they're really layers, by just adding a little bit of shadow or a little bit of dark layer behind. This shows one layer in front of the other. Kind of separate this just a little bit, break up the shape a little bit with a value change. Okay. And down here, this last one here, just adding a few more brush strokes. Again, using a crisscross. Giving rough edges, giving a rough look to the paper and paint. And down here in the foreground now, there's these rocks in the water. So I'm going to put a little bit of shadow on these. The light's coming from this direction, so I'm going to have the back side a little bit in shadow. It'll be a wet, the water is splashing around, so it'll be a little bit darker at the base. And this rock over here, same. This is a little further back, so I'll try not to make it as dark as the foreground one. But this is still in the foreground, but I'll make this a little bit lighter. Again, a little bit of aerial perspective. Trying to make one a little bit lighter than another, just where they would be lighter the further away they are. Okay. Okay, almost floating in the water. And one more. Just a touch. Give it a little shape. Okay. All right, then right down, what I want to do now is just to add a little bit of reflection. I'm going to use that ultramarine blue with a small brush. And I'm going to show just a little shadow pattern here, a little reflection in the water from these rocks. Reflecting in the water. And from the shoreline here, there'll be some reflections also. Kind of move this down. Show some movement in the water. And there might be a few reflections up here from these upper rocks. Might be a little reflection in the water close to the water where there might see a little bit of reflection. Okay. Now the other thing I want to put now, the shoreline itself, I'm going to add a little bit of definition there, and again, just to indicate that there's a little where the water hits the sand is going to have a little dark. And I want to leave that white edge because that's the water hitting up next to the shore. But I want to have the edge of the shore to be a little bit of wetness on the sand. So I'm just going to have a little dark area here. And what I'll do, tip that up so it's a little bit lighter. Okay, now I'm just adding a little bit of definition here. I've got where's my earring? I got my small number 8 round. I'm going to put a little darker definition out here in the water. I've got the horizon line. I'm going to make the horizon line will be further back, so I'm going to use a little darker. This is the horizon line, so it'll be darker. Right along the edge there. Okay. And also put it there. I'm going to put a sailboat here in the water. I'm going to put a sailboat. So I'm just going to have a little hull here and a mast and a sail. Okay, that's the sailboat, and I'm going to add one more little detail. And up here, always next to the shore, I lived on the ocean for many years. I had lots of seagulls in the sky. So a couple birds in the sky. Okay. All right. And you know, in the photograph there was also some definition up here. I can put some trees back in here on these rocks. That might be interesting to have a little bit of vegetation up here. Show some trees. So just put a little bit of dark blue, here. Now I'll put in the one. And put some These will be evergreen trees, like old pine trees, or where they are, where they grow next to the water sometimes. And I'll put another one down here. I'll probably put 2 more down here. Let's see, a bit odd numbers. This would be four trees. And we'll put the 5th tree up here. Okay, so we got some trees up on the mountains, on the rocks, birds in the sky, a sailboat, and I think that's done. Okay, that concludes my demonstration on painting rocks. And this name of this painting is called Rocky Shores. So let's put a mat around this. Get a good look at it. I'll prop it up here. Let me get a mat. Okay. Now I can make the horizon anywhere I want to. I like to have a little lower on the horizon, so I'll bring the mat down a little bit more than the top. So let me bring it up a little bit. Okay. And straighten it up. Okay. Up. So there's my Rocky Shores, and I hope you enjoyed that. Okay, so let me go back to my main camera. Okay, that was to me that was a very good painting. I enjoyed that. Painting rocks. I wanted to get a shoreline, a rocky coast with some rocks in the water, and I added the birds and the sailboat and so forth as added interest, because I think your eye goes out that way. If you look at the if you look at the painting, your eye will go along the shoreline, take you out to the boat, and then bring you back. The water will bring you back along, so it keeps your eye moving. Okay, and let me show that. I may want to demonstrate that to you a little bit. Let me go back to my overhead. What I'm talking about is, you're going to go out here and see you're going to see the sailboat and the birds. You're going to see some trees up on the rocks, and the water is flowing here. It'll bring you back down, and then your eyes will go back up. So your eye will continue to circulate through the painting, and even the clouds will help a little bit. You got the clouds here bringing you down, and you got the water bringing you back here, then up, and then shoreline. So your eye is going to be traveling around this direction here. Okay. All right, so that's why I want to demonstrate that. So let's go back to my main camera again. So that was a good demonstration, and I hope you enjoyed that. Subscribe to my channel and give me a thumbs up. I'd appreciate it. And I'll be back next week with another demonstration of watercolors. So you stay safe. Later on, I'll also do a simply drawing with Everett with a drawing. So you might check that out. I have over 1,000 videos on my YouTube channel, so you can really enjoy watching watercolor painting and demonstrations, drawings, and so forth. A lot of things to look at, so take your time and enjoy. Everett's Watercolors on YouTube. No problem. All right, so until next week, you all stay safe and stay cool. The weather's getting a little bit cooler, but we still got a little bit, maybe some hot days ahead. So be careful and stay hydrated. Until then, I'll see you on the next video. Bye.